Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the launch event of Mazda's Chinese Consumer Report 2021. My name is Yu Lei, Managing Director and Chief Editor of Noblesse magazine. Today's event, we're going to have two parts. The first part is going to be the presentation of Mazda's Chinese Consumer Report 2021. And the second part will be a roundtable discussion between privileged panelists we invited today. Now, I would like to introduce you to Dr. Julie Lalusa, Managing Partner of Mazda's in China and the Executive Board Member of Mazda's Group. Please, Julie.
Thank you, Yulei. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Julie Lulusa, Managing Partner of Mazda in China and a member of Mazda Group Executive Board. On behalf of Mazda China, I'm very pleased to welcome you to the launch of a new Mazda report, The Chinese Consumers in 2021 and How Priorities in Lifestyle Consumption are Changing. Before I turn to the VIP speaker, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to our partners for this survey. Firstly, Mr. Christophe Loras, Senior Vice President Operation Accor Greater China, Mr. and Ms. Jenny Cheah, President of Bulgari Greater China, Mr. Mirko, Bordiga, Managing Director of Maserati China, and Mr. Yu Lei, Managing Director and Chief Editor of Noblesse magazine. We have also another VIP speaker. It's Mr. Nicolas Beckers, CEO of Remy Cointreau, Greater China. He's stuck in an urgent meeting and he cannot join us today. It's very pity. Well, now I also would like to thank our distinguished guest from Fosun Group, Ms. Jenny Wang, President of Fosun Foundation, and Ms. John Cheng, Chairman and CEO of Lanvin Group and Global Partners of Fosun. Thank you for your great support to these events. Thank you. Now, let's welcome Ms. Jenny Wang, President of Fosun Foundation, to make a welcome speech. Jenny, over to you.
特别欢迎大家。Thank you. Welcome everyone to visit Fosun Art Center and the Fosun Foundation, and we are very honored to co-organize this event alongside with Mazda's China and Noblesse. And I would say that it is a wise move, a wise choice for you to come here. So for BFC, after so many years, we actually have become a landmark here in Shanghai, and is also a consumer destination and also a lifestyle destination. And today, I'm very excited and anticipate to the results of the report, because every one of us is a consumer. And as we live in big city like Shanghai, and we care a lot about our spending and whether we are paying the right money for the best value. And as mentioned, our Fosun Foundation actually takes on all sorts of functions and roles as the bridge, and also the platform for arts and exhibitions, etc. And we also have all sorts of exhibitions like the first exhibitions of many well-known Chinese artists, and also for Lanvin and Tiffany and other well-known, and also Cartier, all sorts of well-known international brands have their wonderful exhibitions here. And be it education, events, or other art exhibition and activities, we actually attract a lot of tourists and visitors, and those are our consumers. So we really care about what exactly the focus for our culture spending. So in addition to our material spending, we also focus a lot on our culture spending. And I would say that now everyone has greater anticipation and wants more in culture spending. So we really hope that we can have more research and study and survey in this regard. And we really hope that we can have a wonderful discussion. And we would like to hear from you, your insights, your inputs, and as a guide for Chinese consumers. I wish the event a complete success. Thank you.
Actually, Jenny asked a couple of questions, of which the answers you can find in the survey report. Now, it's my honor to introduce Dr. Julie Lalusa to give us the presentation of this year's Maserati Chinese Consumer Report. Please, Julie.
Thank you. Thank you, Yulei. Thank you. So, welcome again to the launch of the new Maserati report on the Chinese consumers in 2021, how priorities in lifestyle consumption are changing. This report is 6 months of the making. It helped us understand how the pandemic has affected the consumers' habit and consumers' behavior when making the lifestyle consumption. Before that, we get into the detail of the report. Let's look at the particularities of the Chinese market. Well, China is a very unique and fast-changing market. Last year, as the global economy stalled, Chinese economy grew by 2%, and this year it's expected to grow by 8% in 2021. The level of urbanization is steadily increasing, especially in Tier 1 and the new Tier 1 cities. The product life cycles are much shorter in China compared to other countries. For example, up to 70% of the new product cannot survive no more than 18 months. Secondly, China is a very complex and it's a multiple markets. It's a complex because there's a many generation, genders, and city tiers. We can see that later. There's a various profiles of consumers as they have grown up in different stages of China's economy and social development. And based on our survey that we completed last year, we noticed that the Chinese consumers becoming mature and much more sophisticated. Finally, the pandemic has impacted the consumer's behavior and, more importantly, the concept of the value. Then the pandemic has changed our way of life and forced us toward more digitalization. How deep the pandemic has impacted the value and behavior of the consumers of all generations in China, and will the pandemic impact be temporary or permanent, and what will be the market trend in the short and medium term. So we believe that the consumption behavior is closely linked to history, cultural, social evolution, as well as the economic development and one's personal education. So in order to better understand how the consumption behavior, or what would be the consumption behavior of each generation, we have divided our respondents into four age groups. Firstly, baby boomers, age over 55 years old. Generation X, age between 39 to 54 years old. Millennials, age between 25 to 38 years old. And Gen Z, age under 24 years old. So we have conducted our survey during the second quarter of this year in 2021, and we received 4,078 valid responses. Our survey focused on the following four aspects. Firstly, the Chinese consumer lifestyle consumption of the past year. The change in lifestyle consumption since the pandemic. Expected lifestyle consumption in the next 2 years. And the ideal lifestyle in the future. So, before we get into the detail of the survey, please allow me to thank again our strategic luxury brand partners, Accor, Bulgari, Maserati, Remy Cointreau, and a special thanks to Noblesse. So, what are the key findings? 75% of our respondents stated that the pandemic has influenced their lifestyle consumption. Among these 75%, 37% said they have increased their spending, and 38% decreased their spending. So among those who have increased their spending, the top 3 consumption items are experience, wellness, and luxury goods. For those who has decreased their spending, they have cut mainly the overseas travel, perfume and cosmetics, and live performance. So, what is the lifestyle consumption over the past year? Over the past year means that before the pandemic. So, over the past year, the top 5 spending area for Chinese consumer, they are, firstly, the number 1 is experience, such as travel, food, and nightlife. The second one is wellness, which means that activities to maintain physical fitness and psychological well-being. The third one is luxury goods, such as clothes, shoes, and hats, jewelry, and watch, and electronic products. The number 4 is education, which include educational program and also trainings. And the number 5, entertainment and cultural life, such as reading, visiting museum, going to concert, and attending the fashion events. That is the most important spending before the pandemic. And how the pandemic, or how deep the pandemic has impacted the Chinese consumers' behavior and concept of value. When we look at this result, it indicates us that it seems that since the pandemic, the Chinese consumers has reviewed their priorities. For example, education has replaced luxury goods in the coming years to become the third most popular expenditures, and entertainment and cultural life the number 4th, and luxury goods fall to the 5th place. So this result indicate us that the pandemic has, has made the Chinese consumers to review their priorities of spending. But more importantly, our survey reveals that the Chinese consumers are moving from material to spiritual consumption. And this is the most important finding of our report. So on the experiential consumption, from this slide, I will show in more detail the key finding of each consumption category. As we mentioned, experiential consumption was the number 1 in the past year, and it will remain the number 1 in the foreseeable future. Among the experiential consumption, travel, fine dining, nightlife are the most welcome experience in China. And Generation X are the major spenders in travel. Millennium spend the most in a single trip. Millennium, they are also the biggest spender in fine dining. And women, we are more enthusiastic than men about fine dining. It's not surprising to see that the younger generation, Gen Z, especially men, they love nightlife. But what is interesting to note is that the consumption of nightlife in the new first tier cities and under are much more higher than those in the first tier cities. So wellness was the number 2 in the past year, and it will remain number 2 in the coming future. Among wellness consumption, sport club, traditional Chinese medicine treatment, beauty services, and slimming are the most popular wellness consumption. And Millennium and Gen Z, especially men, they are likely to spend the most of their budget in the sport clubs. And the senior population, as baby boomers, Generation X, they have the biggest budget on TCM treatment. It's the consumers in the second-tier cities, they are also very keen on TCM treatment. And millennium, especially women in the first city, they spend significantly higher amount than older age groups. The younger generation, Gen Z, especially women in the second-tier cities, they are the bigger spenders in the slimming services and products. Luxury goods. Luxury goods in the past year was the number 3, and it drops to 5th place for the coming years. Before the pandemic, the top 5 spending in the luxury goods were clothes, hats, shoes, perfume and cosmetic, bags and leather goods, jewelries and watch, electronic products. After the pandemic, electronic products become the second most popular expenditures. And perfume and cosmetic fall to 5th place. But in the future, jewelry and watch will be the most important expenditure among the luxury goods. Education consumption. In the past year, education was the number 4, and in the coming years, it will goes up to the 3rd place. And among the education, since the pandemic, the consumers show stronger desire for education, especially for Gen Z and millennials, and especially among the women population. They are very keen to pursue their education or studied. And it's interesting to note that the population in the 2nd and 3rd tier cities, they are much more interested in education since the pandemic than those in the 1st tier cities. So what are the education consumption of each generation? For example, baby boomers, they are interested in taste development. Generation X in personal hobby, and millennial in vocational skills and further education. Gen Z, they are much more interested in learning foreign languages. So, entertainment and culture. In the past year, it was the number 5th. It will move up to the 4 most popular expenditures. Baby boomers and millennials, they show stronger interest in film and live performance. And cultural exhibition are the most popular expenditure or entertainment for baby boomers and Generation X. And Generation Z, Gen Z, especially men, they are interested in visiting internet famous landmark, and the Gen Z and millennials, especially women, they are interested in attending the fashion events. What is the ideal lifestyle? The Chinese consumers, they are very confident that the ideal lifestyle is just around the corner, because 58% of the respondents mentioned that they will be able to lead to an ideal lifestyle within 3 years. Only 4% stated that it will take more than 1 decade to achieve their ideal lifestyle. Among the 58%, baby boomers and Generation X are the most confident because they said they are now living in an ideal lifestyle or very close to an ideal lifestyle. Women have a stronger sense of fulfillment than men, and the population who live in the first and new first-tier cities, they feel that they are very close to their ideal lifestyle. And 38% of the respondents said that it will take a bit longer, between 4 to 10 years, to achieve their ideal lifestyle. Among those categories are mainly Gen Z and millennials. So how much the Chinese consumers are ready to spend for their ideal lifestyle? Over 80% stated that they are ready to invest over 10,000 RMB per year in their ideal lifestyle. Among those, 49% are ready to spend between 10,000 to 50,000, and Generation Z are the most important among these 49%. 33% are ready to invest more than 50,000 per year in their ideal lifestyle. Millennial women in the first cities are the main population of this category. And 16% of them said that they will spend less than 10,000 in their ideal lifestyle. So what are the key takeaways of this survey? Firstly, the Chinese market is a multiple consumers and very diverse lifestyle market. China's economy changed rapidly. The consumer's preferences are shaped by generation, genders, and city location. Therefore, brands should understand the different drivers for each group and to diversify their offering. The second takeaway is the rise of the experiential over the material. Chinese consumers are spending more on experiential than material. Consumers' perception are maturing and a pivot toward more spiritual well-being. The third takeaway is the wellness market is flourishing. Wellness is the second largest lifestyle expenditure just after the experiential consumption. And this trend will continue, and we expect that this trend become permanent. The fourth takeaway is the high demand of immersive experience. Consumers are more demanding on immersive shopping experience, both online and offline. Every touch point between the consumers and the brand is worth considering to customize the targeted population. And finally, the future of the market is Gen Z. Gen Z is the most important spenders. They have very different approach to consumption compared to older age groups. So companies will need to build up an appealing image with this generation. So that is the main takeaway and the key finding of our report. Thank you for your attention.
Thanks a lot, Julie, for sharing the insights of the survey with us. Today, we're very honored to have several leading industry experts or industry leaders to join us the roundtable discussion about the finding of the survey. Now, let's welcome today's guest speakers to the stage. First, Mr. Christophe Loras, Senior Vice President of Operations of Accor Greater China and President of CCIFC. Ms. Jenny Cheah, President of Bulgari Greater China. Mr. Mirko Bordiga, Managing Director of Maserati China. And Ms. Joann Cheng, Chairman and CEO of Lanvin Group and the Fosun Global Partner. And Julie and I will be the moderators of today's roundtable discussion. Julie, please.
Hello. Thank you to all our VIP speakers, and thank you for being here to share your insight with us. Well, I'm very pleased to be the co-host of this panel. So I'm sure that everyone is, waiting for this moment. I'm going to start with Mr. Christophe Loras. Mr. Loras, you are from Accor Group, and you have been based in China for over 10 years. So you will probably seen the difference of the Chinese consumers' behavior before and after the pandemic. Can you share with us your insight?
Sure. Thank you, Julie. And first, thanks to Mazar for asking Accor to participate to this very interesting study. The first thing we have noticed with the Chinese consumer during and after COVID, if I can say after COVID, because we are not after COVID yet. But the first thing we've observed is how sensitive the customers have become to the hygiene and sanitation questions in the hotels. And every hotel brands, Accor, but also all the international brands, have come up with some protocols and they have communicated on how they handle sanitation, cleanliness, overall hygiene. And I think the Chinese customers tend to turn toward reputable brands, and especially luxury brands, because they know that in terms of hygiene issues, those matters will be maybe a bit better controlled, and this is obviously a very important topic. That's the first thing. The second thing we've noticed is that the more we progress into this crisis or this pandemic, the more we realize that the customers are getting more and more resilient toward the restrictions. A year ago, if you have to go to Beijing and you know that you have to take a PCR test, most consumers would not bother doing that. Today, it has become kind of a new normal. You can go through, you have to fill up a special questionnaire. You know you're going to be screened. You know that you have to get your PCR test. It's very well organized. So you have that customer's resilience, which is very important very interesting to watch. And then if you take the hotel industry, we have two types of customer. So we have the leisure customers, and then we have the business customers. For the leisure customers, and your study shows it very well, the fact that the experience that you provide to the customer is much more important than before. And this is why luxury brands are actually striving better than before, because customers are indeed looking for personalized experience. They want something which is more meaningful. They want to not only to have a stay in a hotel, but they also want to discover their roots. They want the hotels to talk about culture, history, and this is something that we feel more and more with the young generations, you mentioned it, but also with all types of generations of travelers. And as for the business travelers, what we've noticed is that the way they do their business travel now is much more rationalized. Instead of going for a 3-4 days meeting, they will make sure that the meetings, for example, or their business trips is rationalized only in 1 or 2 days. They will make sure that their agenda is meaningful and well filled up. And for the meeting, which was also a big part of, which is a big part of, obviously the customers in hotels. What we have noticed, I don't know if you remember, but during the confinement, everybody was telling us it's the end of meetings. Everybody will do meetings and training through Zoom, through video. But what we've seen is that actually, as soon as confinements were over, people had to come back. They had to go to destination. They had to meet. And I think the human dimension was overlooked. People need to get in touch together. They need to meet. They need to feel the human touch. And this is why definitely the meeting business has transformed. It's more hybrid today. It's not as much as before, but the meeting business for hotels is still pretty much here. And this is quite comforting for us to observe.
Thank you, Mr. Loras. I think that this pandemic has shown that the resilience of the luxury brand, because luxury brands give, I can say it's a kind of guarantee to the quality. And if we summarize also the important things that you mentioned, it's the resilience and also the rational of the business people, but more importantly, the social connection remain a need for all the human beings, I think. Yeah. Thank you.
Now I would like to turn to Ms. Joann Cheng. Lanvin is a leading fashion luxury group in China. From your observation, we would like to know what are the differences in Chinese consumer behavior before and after COVID outbreak?
Sure. Thanks. It's my great pleasure to be here. I mean, the COVID, of course, the first thing that impacted us is on traveling. So a lot of consumption in the past for luxury products was overseas market. When you travel, there's a price difference. But now there's a limit of the travel, restriction of the travel, and we cannot really go abroad to buy luxury. You see that the queue in the shopping mall for the luxury brands, because people still want to consume quality stuff, right? So that's the reason I believe that luxury stay like resilient, like Mr. Rojas and Julia said. People want to consume high quality stuff, and also we see a trend that because of no traveling and sometimes lockdown here and there, people now get used to shopping online. There's a lot of live stream shopping behavior rise when you surf on the TikTok or Xiaohongshu. So the shopping behavior has changed quite a lot. And more importantly is you find that shopping is not only limited to the material products, like Julia in the report said. There's a lot of service experience that our consumers want to shop. So basically, for the brands, we are more focused on how to improve the service experience to our customers, not only in the store, but also online, because that is kind of your attraction to the customers. Finally, I want to say people pay more attention, first of all, to the health, because it's COVID time. So spend more on like a gym, activities, sports. Even for the ready-to-wear, we want to make sure our products are easy and functional to wear. Secondly is pay more attention to the earth, okay? So there's a very important topic in our fashion industry is about sustainability. So we know that we only have one earth, and we like a blue sky. We like our earth to be healthy, like a human beings want to be like healthy. So sustainability is a very important topic for all of us, especially for the young people, that to save the earth. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Right. It's obvious that the demand for high-end consumer products will continue to grow in China, particularly among Chinese consumers, despite the pandemic. And it's interesting you mentioned experience of consumer in the markets and online. And also, it's interesting you mentioned the word sustainability. When we talk about wellness today, it's not the wellness of personal lifestyle, but it's also the wellness of the community and a big environment in the broader sense. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So now I turn to Mr. Bordiga. Mr. Bordiga, you are an expert in the luxury cars. You have been in that industry for over 20 years. You have been based in China for over 20 years as well. So I can say that I know that you are an expert, in the Chinese market. And so what can you share your insight with us? I mean, on the Chinese consumers' behavior before and after the pandemic.
First of all, if somebody says is an expert of Chinese market, is either lying or is not very in his wits, because this market change basically monthly. So, and it's just 17 years, but after 10, I stopped counting. So, yeah, you may be right. Few of the words that Christophe and Joann said, I also put in my notes where I was thinking about the answer to the question. Resilience, sustainability, but I will elaborate a little bit more in a different way, because the car is a different kind of luxury. Is a crossover between an item that you have that is necessary, because every human being has the need of mobility on one side, and on the other is also experience, because there are many ways in which the driving experience or the mobility experience can be delivered. And every brand has these peculiarities in doing this. But the other thing that I wrote about the situation is, yes, resilience is important, but I got an interview, I was talking to my people in Italy, to my company in Italy, and I say, guys, my fee in February, I will just go back when we started working at half the shifts in February 2020. I said, according to me, knowing the Chinese people, the recovery will be a V-shape. I didn't think since the beginning that the economy in China would stay low, because the capability of the people to react to adversity was one of the things that I learned in my years in China and liaising with the people. Then the behavior obviously has changed, but not as deeply as in Europe, and not as deeply to make it definitive. Probably the changes are going to be more definitely outside of China than in China. To be honest, yes, Christophe got it, as said exactly before. People go for the COVID test, for the check before having travels, but that's become normality. I hear, when I talk to my colleagues in Italy, people are still moaning about that. So guys, just get back to your wits. So this is the new normality, and you will have to live this. In China, we are a little bit more fortunate that we can have a life that is more normal, more like before, to be honest. Yes, the fact that the customers are spending more in China then they were spending abroad. Yeah, of course, they were not buying cars abroad and driving them back to China. So on that point of view, we are not being affected. But the amount of available funding for local purchases has reflected positively on our brand, on our sales. So, and then I go to what Joann was saying, sustainability. But sustainability in car business is a trend that started years and years ago, and again, on which China has been capable to go at the forefront of electrification, which is what I'm talking about. Thank God all the European manufacturers, including ours, have been working significantly on improving on electrification. We have a program called Folgore, which in Italian means lightning, and next year Maserati will launch its first 100% electric car. So we finally go fighting with other, let's say, manufacturers that were not in the radar screen before, like Tesla or others. So we will have our own version of electrified luxury. And I think this is in the car business what everybody has been doing and will be doing in the following years to cope with the Chinese customer.
Thank you, Mr. Bordiga. So resilience, and also you mentioned that, the Chinese consumers, generally speaking, or Chinese people, they are very easy to adapt to the new situation. They're much more, flexible on that. And the last one is sustainability development. It's a notion, a definition that we start to be very careful, and it's a hot topic in China right now. And I have to say that I'm really, eager to see your new model with the electronic car.
You love it.
Thank you.
Now I'd like to turn to Ms. Jenny Cheah, Bulgari from Bulgari. Bulgari is one of the leading luxury brands in China.
Thank you.
As mentioned in the survey, and also mentioned by Mirko, experience, the key findings in our Mazda survey. I would like to know what's your view over the rise of experiential consumption over material consumption within Chinese consumers, and what will be the challenges and opportunities for Bulgari in the China market?
I believe the rise in experiential consumption is really a natural progression of in society that's becoming more sophisticated. Of course, naturally, I think the COVID-19 situation, as Mazda's research has pointed out, has accelerated to a high degree this trend. In terms of biggest challenge and opportunity for, I think, Bulgari, or for that matter, any other brand, is how do we make buying a luxury experience? And we know luxury experience means different things to different customers. And that makes it very challenging because it will require the brands to put in a lot more effort, to be a lot more creative in curating the experience that speaks to the customers. For us, even, if we look at, for some of our top and best customers, the experience is no longer that moment in time. It is basically almost a week-long, month-long, or even year-long experience that you have to curate to engage your clients that accumulates to that singular purchase. So, so for us, that poses an opportunity for the brand. The brand that succeeds is the one that can be creative, that can curate an experience that is tailored and personalized to the client at hand. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have talked about, John was the first person to mention sustainability in China. It's a hot topic, and Mr. Loras, what are Accor? It's what I would say. What would be the strategy of Accor in terms of the sustainable development in the hotel activities?
Thank you, Julie, for the question. So in the hospitality, we have a lot of challenges in terms of sustainability. So it's the building, the single-use plastic, we have the food waste, carbon emission, of course. We have a lot of challenges to tackle. So I'm not going to give you, I'm not going to explain all the actions we do in those fields because that would take an hour. But if you let me take a few examples on the single-use plastic issue. So we've done like every hotel brands, we've gotten rid, of course, of the straws and plastic stirrers. Those things are out of the rooms. What we did also is to remove from the rooms every single-use plastic that customers are using a lot in the amenities, for example, the toothbrush. But there is kind of a fallacy into removing toothbrush from the rooms because every hotel is doing this, but then when you go to the front desk and you check in, they will ask you if you want a toothbrush. So what's the purpose of that? So we've been beyond this, and what we've done is we participated to the educational process of the customers. In Asia, not only China, but in Asia, customers do not travel with their toothbrush, and we have to change this mindset. So we have spent a lot of money and energy into talking to the customer, explaining them that, yes, we remove the toothbrush, but we would like you to bring your own toothbrush. And that's a lot of marketing money, obviously. The next step is actually something that we have been very innovative about. That's the toiletries. So that's the shampoo, the soap that you have in the rooms. This, of course, has to remain. And what we have done, instead of doing big plastic bottles, we have created in China, and I think we are the first company to do this, a solution which is a dispenser made out of PLA. PLA is actually a sustainable plastic. It's basically made out of cornstarch. It doesn't look so good, so we put it into a ceramic container that we put in the bathroom. And this is something that we have developed for every brand, including the luxury brand. And for example, in the Sofitel brand, we use Lanvin, and we already have our dispenser Lanvin with inside the PLA container, which is fully sustainable and fully biodegradable. That's something we have created in China that is going to be rolled out worldwide. So in terms of single-use plastic, this is also a big move. And the last thing I want to talk about is that Accor is rolling out a new solution for carbon offsetting. So we have partners with a very reputable platform. And we are piloting this in China right now, but it's already in place in Europe, whereby customers who book a room or who book a stay or who book a meeting have the opportunity to go on that platform and to actually purchase their carbon emission. So we calculate how much carbon their stay is going to use, and they have the opportunity on that platform to purchase a compensation to this carbon emission for a program that is going to go into decarbonization program anywhere, and they can actually choose that program. So this is under rollout already in Europe, and we are piloting this year in China.
Wow, very interesting. We really learned something here because, on the carbon compensation in the hotel, I think that it will be quite interesting. So your company will be the first hotel chain to implement that.
So for the carbon emission, you mean?
For the carbon compensation.
So for the carbon compensation, I will have to get back to you. I don't know if we are the first hotel company to do so, but we are definitely one of the first. For the solution made out of PLA plastic, which is basically a cornstarch plastic, I believe we are the first, yes.
Well, congratulations to Accor. Well,
next, I would like to come to Mirko, Mr. Bordiga. As you mentioned, the younger generation consumers, as we learned that cross-branding has becoming increasingly popular, particularly in street fashion and also in youth culture. We also learned that this year Maserati has collaborated with several influencers, such as Hiroshi Fujiwara and William Cheng. So we would like to know what plans does Maserati would have to, in the future, to increase its resonance among Chinese younger generation.
You just mentioned two, so that's clearly starts from the customer. China is just to change. It's a totally different animal compared to the rest of the world. The average age of our customer in China is about 35 years old already. So the big bulk of our customer is already millennials. In the rest of the world, Maserati customer is 55. In China, we have 40% women customer. In the rest of the world, we have 5. So you can imagine in terms of marketing mix and marketing strategy definition, how distant we are from what the headquarters are trying to do globally. In reality, actually today is the 107th birthday of Maserati. And when you are around for so many years, one of the things you have to do is continuously adapt your strategy, your product, the way you think, the experience you provide to a customer that is evolving. And in China, you know very well, we know each other, I don't know how many years, we saw a lot of things. We see how much it can change over here. You mentioned influencers. Yes, influencers is one of the way you can reinforce your relevance entering the world of the customers. By the way, extremely professional. Both Fujiwara does not need any introduction. Is a father of the streetwear, and William Cheng is probably the influencer in China, the celebrity in China with the highest level, the highest number of followers on Weibo, and it's all connected to the fact that one of our motto is live audacious. Being a sporty brand, we're being connected to racing, to excitement for the whole life of the brand. So audacity is something that we believe, and actually audacity you find more in the younger target customer group. This is why in our 17 years in China, we've always been able to have a young customer group. For the Ghibli, that is our sedan model, entry sedan model, the average age of our customer is already 28. So this is why we are always observing very carefully where the young people are going, and we move in that direction. But I don't think we have anything like the cornstarch shampoo for that. I don't know for obvious reason. But besides that, is clearly something that with the sustainability and providing a product that is in line with what the customer wants, is a better environment. It's important. The car business has been probably the least popular business with governments, city governments for decades, where noisy, smelly, making a big mess, congesting the road of the cities, and now we have the possibility to clean up this image by doing something that goes in the direction of what the authorities want as well.
Thank you, Ms. Bordiga. It's very interesting you mentioned the uniqueness and the difference the China market if compared with the Western markets. And it's been emphasized that it's very urgent for all the international brands to adapt, to understand the Chinese consumer market as fast as possible, because as mentioned, changing so fast these days.
But if I can integrate a little bit to your previous question, the COVID will make this, has made already, and will make the process for the next few years more difficult. Because I don't know what's the experience of the people in the audience, but or the people here, but it's extremely complicated. Has become even more difficult to explain to the headquarters what's happening here. There is a rift that is growing bigger and bigger. So for me, it's, I know they don't understand. I know. When I explain, they should come and see, but they cannot come and see. And this is something specific for business, but I think it will have wider implications in terms of understanding between our culture, the one I'm originating from, and the one here. That's going to be an issue for the long term. And we have to find a way to reinforce or rebuild somehow the bridges.
Yeah, I agree that this is probably that's why important for Mazars, a global institution, to conduct the market survey in China every year, and to, with your influence around the globe, to make more people in the West understand the change, the rapid change of China market. Thank you, Mr. Bordiga.
Thank you, Yulei. I heard that, so we will continue our survey next year. Well, Mr. Cheah, you have explained very well, earlier how the Chinese consumers, they consume experiential over material. But could you share with us, what Bulgari concretely implemented to increase the consumer's experience in China?
I think for us, it will have to cover both online and offline, whether in boutique and out of boutique. We are actually already started to be more focused on engaging the clients. For example, in the boutique, there's 6 senses. As you mentioned, immersive experiences is also something we're trying to inject into our boutique as well. At the same time as we build more boutiques, we are also dedicating more areas for interactions with the customers. It's no longer jam-packed with products or with counters. We also, at the same time, adopting a much more focused omni-channel approach to provide a seamless customer journey, whether it's online and offline, because I think, as Joann has mentioned, that is becoming even more critical in today's world. But at the same time, a key element for a brand like Bulgari, right, is how do we inject and express our Italian warmth and hospitality in every experience that we curate. We are very fortunate to have a key asset within Bulgari, and that is our hotel. And this is actually an asset that we are currently leveraging on and tap on to increase the experience for our Bulgari customer in their journey with us as well. So it is uniquely different. It's no longer just going to boutique, buy a product, and out they go. And also, I think, as you mentioned in your research as well, that the Gen Z is focusing more on experiential consumption. Previously, we provide experience after the consumer buy. With the Gen Z, you have to provide the experience first before they buy. So I approach that we have to adopt. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cheah. Absolutely agree that Gen Z, they first need to, you need to fulfill their experience before they buy. And I think that Bulgari, it's very fortunate to have Bulgari brands and Bulgari hotel to let people to buy and to experience the hotel and services of Bulgari Group. Thank you.
We'd like to come back to Mrs. Joann Cheng. We're talking about millennial Generation Z because we have been in BFC for a couple of times and noticed the majority of people who come to here are very young people. Lanvin Group has 5 prestigious brands under. Wow! It's a very advanced gimmick.
So like Julia's report, the electronic consumption becoming number 2 after the COVID, because people like to upgrade the phone and upgrade everything that electronically. This is a smarter glass.
It reminds me of 007. James Bond. Okay, come back to the question.
Sorry.
Since Lanvin Group has 5 prestigious brands operating over 60 countries, so what do you feel the unique challenges for global brands in their efforts to capture the growth opportunities in the China market?
Okay, I think just like a mirror, Mirko mentioned that every global brands need to capture the local taste or local trend. That's one of the reasons when we have the Lanvin group, every brand running into the future operation model. Now we are considering so-called a new business model called a dual engine. Dual engine, you need 2 engines, means we have to keep the DNA engine, which is the heritage engine, healthy and strong, which usually coming from the home countries, like Lanvin in Paris or Caruso in Milan. However, in the local market, like a big market like China, we also need to have our delegated local team to really drive the growth engine. Means we need to tailor some capsules for this market to meet the demand of young generations. Very easily, this young generation, they have more self-awareness. Okay, they're not so loyalty to brand anymore. In X, maybe when you carry a very big brand, big logo bags, people will be more appreciated. But in Z, it's more about self-statement of your own culture or of your own awareness. So, which means as a brand, they need to really tailor the local demand by local capsules. This is about the speed of adapt to the local market. Secondly, I think one interesting trend, what I observe in the past, we say tier 1, tier 2 cities, right? Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou. Now, the most popular city is Chengdu, maybe, right? Besides these tier 1, you find the young generations want to live in a more, in a better life. They're not necessarily stay in first tier, like a high competition, a lot of overtime, high living cost. Sometimes they choose going back to the hometown, live in a more quality life. So that's why some new, so-called new tier 2 or tier 1 cities becoming very popular and attract a lot of young generations, which drive the retail footprint of all the brands to those cities. Hangzhou, Nanjing, Chengdu. So, which I think for our brands, we need to adapt the brand's footprint to those new cities roadmap as well. So, of course, the final one is the online shopping. Again, this is definitely for future, not only online. Some of the brands like Balenciaga are already talking about the MAT. Right, that word means that you are not only can shop physically in the store about physical products, you are allowed to shopping in a virtual world about your virtual house with your virtual boyfriend, right? So that's very interesting future trend. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing us with your insights. Particularly, you mentioned the difference of regional culture in China because the country is so vast. You mentioned first-tier cities, and we have a new layer of cities between first and second tier. So how to better understand the consumers who have grown up in the different regional culture and different environments is also very important for a survey like Mazars survey. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bordiga. Well, I'm very amazed by what you said. In China, 40% of your clients are female, and in overseas, only 5% they are female. And you said in overseas, 55 years old are more than 55 years old, they would buy Maserati, but in China, much more younger. So if we talk about the younger generation, Millennium and Gen Z, they are the biggest spenders in the luxury products, and especially luxury cars. So what would be your new product line to attract those generations?
Well, Joann was saying that they have two engines. We have only one engine, but it's very powerful. So this is the first thing that you have to say. You know, everything starts from the product, because the brand is very nice, but at the end, a lot of brands had the so-so product. If you don't work, you don't invest in the product itself, you don't go really far. While refreshing the whole line, of course, I know the cars that are coming for the next 6 years, but I cannot tell tonight. It's the one that is closer is the launch of the Grecale. Grecale is the name of wind, like many Maserati are named after winds. In China, they would say the Grecale is the Dongbei wind. So this is very powerful and hits the Mediterranean. Overall, all the product line that you will see in the next years will follow the logic of everyday exceptional. As I said before, the young people are dynamic. They want experiences, and when we have an experience, you want another one after another. So it's become addicted. But then again, going back to the product, they also want connected vehicles, intelligent vehicles, and this is something the company, but not just the company, the whole Stellantis group. Now we are part of the Stellantis group with many more brands, Peugeot, and we have a very big base foundation of technology that can be shared among all the brands. And then, as was mentioned before, probably Jenny, it's the experience and is also brought by how much you can personalize your car. We have just developed a new concept that we called Foresee, that is a personalization program that gives the customer the possibility to customize the car at every level they want. So obviously they can express their taste, their personalities. There are dedicated colors, dedicated interiors, dedicated leather. We work with several brands like Zegna, for example, in luxury for specific materials. We could pelle tessuta, woven leather, or a special silk. But this is very difficult, doing this kind of cooperation on product, because the cars are heavily, and I say heavily, regulated products. You have to go after strict homologation processes and procedures that are different country by country. So it's making a car is not so easy as one may think. Going forward may become easier with the electric cars because the technology is pretty basic, but overall that will make even more difficult to keep your personality when the technology is so basic.
Yeah, thank you. So connected, smart, and personalized are the main criteria for the younger generation. But I think that I cannot wait. I'm sure that the younger generation will be very excited to for this new product line.
But not just the young generation. Huh? So when we launch a new car, I promise I come and pick you, bring you out for fine dining. Yeah. As you said before in the research, we enjoy a little bit the lifestyle with a nice car, nice food. We try to replicate what we do normally in Italy.
So it means that you are still young. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, I would like to come to Ms. Jenny Cheah. As I remembered in the survey findings, in general, the luxury spending on luxury products will be going down, but the watch and jewelry spending is going to grow up. As Bulgari is very strong in watch and jewelry, so to attract younger generation, so how would a luxury brands like Bulgari do to increase its appeal to younger consumers in China market?
I think whether young or old, everyone is young at heart. Okay, so, right, did you agree?
Yeah, I agree.
Yes? Julie, agree? Absolutely, right? So I think for us, Bulgari resonates, I think, with consumers of all ages. I think we're able to appeal across generation. with our very, very strong Italian heritage and craftsmanship. And we're also highly recognized as the masters of colored gems. Our designs, I think, very interestingly, is probably very bold, very distinctive. We do appeal to a very independent woman, young and old, and also men at the same time. We appeal more to personality, right? One who enjoys life with a vivacious personality, who lives life to the fullest. Additionally, we do have a very good range of products, which definitely appeal across generations as well, from handbags to jewelry and watches, as you mentioned, and even perfumes. And across these collections, if we just take jewelry as example, Diva is probably, if some of you who may be familiar with our collections, Diva is probably one of the first product that a Chinese girl would pick up. You know, and we have a series called Age of Blossom, which celebrates the coming of age at the age of 18. And B01, I'm sure everyone is familiar with. B01 rock appeals to those who have the rock attitude at heart, even though, you know, it is classed as probably more appealing to Generation Z. And then as the consumer becomes more sophisticated, we have the Serpenti line to help accompany them through their sophisticated outlook. So for us, we believe that, you know, we are able to accompany our consumers throughout their life journey. We appeal to consumers across generation at different stages of their life. I think the key then is for us, how do we tailor the approach in our communication to them? And I think that is more important in my perspective.
Thank you for sharing this. It's very interesting because a couple of months ago, Bulgari had an interesting event in the Columbus Club. You designed an interesting scene that attract young people to go to take photos, selfies, but also understand, explore the history of your brand. I was surprised every time I go to Bulgari Hotel in Shanghai, I saw, wow, those people who check in, check out, how young they are.
Yeah, exactly. I think we have a very broad range of customers, and I think that would be, the success of us, not to limit ourselves to one generation. Like I said, regardless of generation, we all want to be part of the in crowd, and I think that is most important. Thank you.
Agreed. Thank you.
So, Ms. Cheng, well, having heard all the VIP speakers related to the Chinese retail market, what would be the trend, I mean, according to you, in the coming 3 to 5 years in this new, I mean, retail market?
Yeah, I think a couple of trends. First of all, I mean, our life become digital. So basically, it's no doubt that everybody will rise the portion of the product shopping online. My husband never shop. Usually, I shop in the store. But now, tea, coffee, everything. If he follow one, for example, trustable, like a broadcaster in the live stream platform, he just buy it. Okay, so it totally changed my life. I get more used to that. I just watch the red little book, 小红书, and then my husband do the shopping online. Okay, so secondly, I think is again our attention to the health and attention to the earth. So, for example, Wolfo, as I never mentioned Lanvin Group's brand, but now it's time for me to say a little bit about what we have done to really show our commitment to the earth. So, for example, all the leathers now become artificial leathers. We don't use the true leathers. And also for some of the fabric, we use so-called sustainable fabric that can be 100% disposable. When you want to get rid of these clothes, you just put into the garden and it can become like a soil for the trees. So we are now doing a lot of research and development for that kind of fabric. I think lastly is, again, for the next few years is, the brands will grow, and more brands, local brands will grow. Now you see that in our industry, not only talking about Western brands, there's a lot of China home brands, right, grown up. So we are not only compete with overseas brands, we are now compete with a lot of so-called traditional Chinese or even new brands, new designer brands. But that's interesting. I mean, ultimately, I think consumption, retail is a big market. So we have to keep learning. We have to adapt ourselves. We have to, being very innovative, not as a very traditional fashion in this company. We should become a somehow technology-driven fashion company to survive in this industry. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Cheng. So digitalization and social media, as well as innovation in the fabric, in the creativity, and also in the way that understanding the market. Well, thank you.
I would like to put the same question to Mr. Christophe Loras. What will be the key trends you will foresee in the next 3 to 5 years in the China consumer market?
It's obviously a very tough question because it's been answered already. So all I can do is to recap what everybody has said. But yes, definitely, first we see a come of age of the new generation, so they will take over. If you take the Gen Z, I think they only represent 17% of the population, but they already consumed for 26% of the new luxury brands. They are much more open to local brands, local luxury brands. You're absolutely right. This is what comes out of your survey. Not only that generation, but if you add them up to the millennials, they actually represent almost 50% of the population, but they are actually 80% of the luxury consumption here in China. So that is definitely something that will continue. All the trends that we see in your survey, Julie, they will continue to grow. Obviously, the search for wellness, for health, the search for also a more meaningful way of consumption, a more meaningful way to travel, to purchase, to mark an individual difference rather than to be a sheep that buys the same thing that everyone else. Personalization, you mentioned it very well, even for luxury cars. This will definitely continue. And we talked a lot about environment. If we focus on this and zoom back a little bit, it's basically ESG, so environmental and social governance. The customer will scrutinize companies before they purchase, before they use a brand or a company. They will check what are the ESG values of that company more and more. So what are they doing for the environment? What are they doing? How do they treat their staff? What are their policies? And there won't be any opportunities for faking it, for greenwashing, because now the netizens are much more sophisticated than before. They will know if a company does it with a heart or if they're just faking, and this will be a definitive criteria to choose a brand, to choose a company. And not only, by the way, for the brands, but also for the KOL. You were mentioning the influencers. I think the future consumers will also look those influencers, those KOLs. Are they virtuous? Are they just here to make money, or do they carry also some virtues and some values that are important? So I think this is something that we're going to see more and more, and that companies and brands are going to have to pay attention to.
Thank you, Christophe. It's very interesting because you mentioned the words value for a couple of times before. I think that's the purpose of the survey, how to better understand the consumer value in China market before we can make any decision or to draft any strategy in China market. Thank you for all the panelists to share with your insights into the China consumer market. Now it's time to open the floor to the audience. I would like to see if any of you would raise questions. Please. Please introduce yourself before you raise your questions.
Hi.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Nat, and I work in retail. Just a quick question to the panel. How will what you have just said change if the border starts to reopen? If the Chinese consumer will continue to influence, the global trends, or vice versa, or things won't change? Thank you.
Wow, very good question.
The short answer is yes, definitely. The Chinese consumer will not only be a huge consumer, especially in luxury internally, but worldwide for sure. I mean, all the projections are showing this, and I know a lot of brands that cannot wait for the borders to reopen for sure. Yes.
I think the question would be, will Chinese consumers still continue to spend in China versus, spending out of China? I think at this point it's everybody's guess. I think the leaders that's managing China, of course we want to keep the consumption inside China. But if you look at globally, I think there is a lot of merit in having consumers also spend out of China as well. So that we share that, common growth in that respect. The key would be, how do we engage our clients with experiences that they cannot replicate outside of China? When they are traveling, it's always 1 day, 2 days. They don't necessarily get the experience. What they get is a transaction. It's our opportunity, I think, for the leaders in this market to be able to engage our client from an experience standpoint. So you can actually then, when they go out and buy, when they travel, they think of us first. And that, I think, would be, critical, for us. I hope we answer your question. Thanks.
If, I'm, as I said before, not very affected, but I look from another direction. If the exchange rate keeps going as it's going these days, is the Chinese that wants to go out and buy outside? Because the trend that is taking is making everything extremely convenient to be bought abroad, if the trend is continuing.
Okay. I mean, I think part of the consumption will remain domestically. Even the border open. Of course, there's more traveling, more consumption will flow out compared to the COVID period of time. But if think about buying luxury in the past, when people buying luxury, they buy when they travel. But there's a lot of tier 1 citizenship already experienced a lot of traveling experience in the overseas market. If just in order to buy luxury and then buy tickets and travel, I don't think that's the purpose compared to the past, okay? Because a lot of traveling already happened. And again, the domestic market also give a lot of chance, like Hainan, you can have a whole island duty-free, right? And a lot of brands, like Chanel, they also have a price, parity, means except for the duty or tax, you cannot avoid. A lot of brands already treat the price almost equally, on top of those must pay like duty tax. So, I mean, duty tax is understandable. So I think we'll have changes, but won't be like totally 100% back to COVID time, before COVID time.
Julie, you have anything to add?
No. I think everything has been said. I do agree that it's true that I do not think that it will come back to the before the pandemic, and there's a permanent change in the behavior of the Chinese consumers because of the convenience and because the price difference is narrowing. And also I think that people now, in the past, people when they travel with a shopping list, and now with our survey, which really indicate that people will travel in the sense of visiting the cities, and it's a kind of cultural entertainment and learning experience instead of only shopping, I think.
Please allow me to add a few points. I think for the past 2 years, borders are closed, but we are forced to change our mentality on many things. The changes I have observed is, for example, the watch fairs in Geneva and in Basel. When those brands came to Shanghai to have watch wonders in Shanghai, they realized, how closely to the local consumer markets. So it's much easier for brands to understand, to reach out to the TA consumer groups. So I think my point is, even if the border open completely next year in 2 years, the world is not going back to the old world. Everybody is changing. Our mentality is changing, industry is changing. The key question is how we adapt to the change that we have seen in the past 2 years. So I think it's interesting. We cannot predict things, we cannot foresee things. That's also the interesting of life. Yeah. Okay, next question.
My question. Okay, Mr. Bordiga. I'm so curious, so why, Maserati grew so fast in Chinese market. So we'd like to share what is your tactics of surprise in Chinese market.
Well, no secrets. I just have a great team that work hard, and the brand is very strong. We have been entering the Chinese market relatively early, so we've been one of the first players. So are pretty much radicated in the mind of the potential customer. But as I said, we always try to give the customers the best we can, even though we are a relatively small brand at the end of the day, because I cannot tell you the numbers of cars we sell this year because we are listed, but we are doing significantly better than last year, but we remain small overall. So we don't speak to a wider audience. We don't have a big volume requirement. Let's say, I give you numbers of the past that I can. In 2019, we sold about 8,000 cars. Last year, we lost basically the first half, first quarter really. Then the second quarter was hit. Last year we sold 4,600 more or less. This year we sell significantly more, but we could have sold more. Next year I don't know, because we start being hit by the chip crisis. I was mourning before the meeting with some people in Italy because they just informed me that we'll cut more my production for next year. So there are a few things that have to be considered. But I think the customer like us, and I have a great team.
Next question.
Hi, this is Zen. So there's quite a bit of mention of spiritual wellness and ESG in the presentation and also the panel discussion. So my question is, have you seen an increase in investment in your company for the spiritual wellness of your employee staff or for the guests?
Yes, I think we spend more because this is an investment for future, right? I mean, give a very simple example that, I mean, this is operation details, but before, when we do the budget, we say, okay, this is what we will achieve for the top line, for the bottom line. Now we carve out one line is for the ESG and one line for the R&D, right? So everybody knows, even in the fashion industry, we want to be driven by technology. So means including those sustainability. So we have to put into more investment into the sustainability development, and also ESG for the social attention to the employees, people's I think we are doing more. And for another example, using waffle, we obtained the first golden certificate of sustainability from cradle to cradle for our one collections that really have zero pollution to the environment.
I think for us, definitely yes to your answer on particularly on staff. I think that is one of our biggest focus in terms of making sure that the wellness of our staff is taken care of. We just relocated and expanded our office. And in our office design, we have set aside spaces, whether it's a inspiring room or, or areas whereby the team could go in and rest and relax. Even from, a simple things as simple as a table. Today, we allow it's no longer just a fixed table, whereby, we have mechanisms that allow our staff to be able to decide whether they want to sit during their work or they want to stand during their work. So, those are little things that we inject into our new office space. And we are fortunate to have the ability to do that, to upgrade and elevate the wellness of our team. With the clients and for us, the latest example would be our Plaza 66 facade. For those of you who haven't seen it, completely sustainable. It is made out of glass bottles. We crushed it and developed a material that is that could withstand the weather, and we made it and put it on our facade. And the color of the facade, of course, is something that we wanted to represent uniquely Chinese, so so the color resembles jade. But all these are the little things that we do to, number one, resonate with the culture, but also at the same time to be responsible, to be a responsible brand, when it comes to sustainability efforts as well. So it's part of our one of our key goals and objective for Bulgari in general.
On our side, a great product is not enough. As you said, you need to have also a happy team. In Maserati China, 70% of the staff are ladies. So we always say that Maserati China is female, and that can be tough sometimes. But it's that's also exciting. So basically, you have to provide in China, ladies, they carry a big weight because they have to take care of the kids. They have to take care of the work, the overall management of the family. So we basically, what we did in the past was providing a good environment for them to be able to balance work life and office life.
And as far as I already mentioned what we do in terms of research and development for the environment. So obviously this is a lot of investment. In terms of staff, I mentioned earlier also that ESG, if you fake it, you will know it. Why? Because your team, your staff, they talk also, they're online. I mean, it would be public knowledge if you would not be investing in your team. I personally work for the hospitality industry, which is one of the sectors where it's the hardest to actually retain personnel, to motivate personnel. And if we were not spending a lot, we would not be able today to provide the luxury service that we provide in our luxury brands, like in Raffles, in Fairmont. The level of personalization that you need in those properties or in a Sofitel requires, like you said, a team of happy people, and we have to invest into making sure they're happy. Otherwise, the customer they welcome will never be happy. And I think if you look at the reputation of such hotel brands today, it means that we are also doing what it takes to make sure that our people feel comfortable in the company and stay in the company.
If you allow me, I can also share related to Mazar. In Mazar, because we have a lot of clients and we cannot not to work on ESG because our clients are demanding on the ESG. The first one that for us, people are very important. So we are investing a lot in our people. Mainly, we pay an important attention to our people. For example, diversity, inclusiveness, And within Mazars, meritocracy is something very, very important because we promote people with their capacity and not other things. Whatever background you come from, meritocracy is the most important. And we emphasize on inclusiveness. The second things I would say it's we start, because our population travel a lot, so we start to look at the carbon emission that we are the emission of the carbon emission every single year. So we will start all the process to really track it and to see and whether it's rational to travel or rational to do this because of the earth. And that I think that it's a big, process that we are start to thinking and putting in and putting a kind of deadline by 2030, for example, 2025, what we're going to do, 2030, what we're going to do, and etc. So that's the ESG that we are implementing within Mazars.
I think time is pretty much. And I do believe you have a lot more questions. I think that's the purpose of survey, to inspire us, and also the purpose of this roundtable discussion, to inspire us, the people in the industry, to think more deeply about the consumer value in the China market. So thanks to you all, the panelists, to share with us your insights over the findings of the survey, and also thanks to Julie to give us opportunity to share with the audience your finding, the observation, the insights over your findings. And thank you all for coming. Actually, you can stay for a little while to mingle, to socialize with each other, to share with your thinking and your observation thoughts over the topic today. And we would like to continue, maybe next year, we would come back with more interesting findings on the China consumer market. Thank you. Thank you.